Welcome to Pathways of Hope. My name is Lucy Taka and I would like to share with you my reflections on the Gospel of today, taken from Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 to 11. In today's Gospel, Jesus is approached by a centurion to ask for healing for his servant who was paralyzed and suffering terribly. By doing so, the centurion displayed three important qualities: love, humility, and faith. The centurion was a professional officer of the Roman Empire who commanded about 100 men, which was called a centuria. They formed the backbone of the Roman military and were responsible, among others, for enforcing discipline. A centurion usually rose from the ranks, from being an ordinary soldier to one leading a centuria. We can just imagine how strong in heart, mind, and body the centurion was. The scene in the Gospel is therefore very unusual. A Roman officer not just coming to a penniless itinerant Jewish preacher, but actually seeking or asking a favor from him. You know, that time the Romans occupied Judea and so considered the Jews inferior to them. For the centurion to engage Jesus and seek his help was a dangerous act. It must have taken a lot of strength and courage for him to do that, especially in the midst of the crowd surrounding Jesus. He was risking his reputation and status as a soldier and as a Roman. What could have motivated the centurion? I can only surmise it was love. It could not have been just fear of losing a servant, no matter how excellent that servant may have been. During that time, servants were considered chattel, objects to be traded. They were part of the lowest class of society. For the centurion, to risk shame and ridicule tells us he obviously valued his servant and treated him more like a family member, relative, or friend. That he would go to the extent of seeking help in behalf of this servant from Jesus, or who was a Jew, breaking strong societal taboos, indicates more than ordinary concern. It can only mean he loved his servant. John chapter 15 verse 13 states, and I quote, "Greater love has no one than this, that one lay down his life for his friends." Close quote. The centurion may not have been sacrificing his very life on this occasion, but he was sacrificing a lot. Let us reflect on this love displayed by the centurion. Like him, do you love enough to risk your reputation and status, even your life, for another person or a worthy cause? Are you willing to forget yourself so you can intercede for the needs of others? Do you value their well-being above your own? Let us go to the next trait, humility. When Jesus expressed his willingness to heal the servant, the centurion exhibited humility by acknowledging his unworthiness to have Jesus come to his house. This coming from a man who commanded obedience from others and even inspired fear, I would think. The centurion was confident of his own authority and power, but he clearly recognized that Jesus possessed authority and power well beyond his own. Instead of asserting his position or using force or making demands on Jesus, the centurion humbled himself and took a posture of submission. Like the centurion, do you come in humility before the Lord, acknowledging his sovereignty and your own limitations and weaknesses? Or do you feel you deserve the favors and blessings you are getting and are entitled to them? I would like to believe that the centurion's confession of unworthiness, and I quote, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed," close quote, opened the door wider to his servant's healing. In the same way, when we confess that before partaking of the Eucharist, it disposes our minds and our hearts to God's healing, nourishment, and restoration. Finally, the centurion's faith. He showed great faith by believing that Jesus could heal his servant remotely without even coming into contact with him, and by merely his word without the servant even having to hear it. By doing that, it seems that the centurion recognized Jesus' divinity It is hard to imagine how this could have been, considering the centurion was most likely a pagan. He must have heard of Jesus or heard him speak or witnessed his miracles, so he was convinced he possessed extraordinary power despite his humble appearance, status, and stature. It is possible that the centurion may have just come to a personal conversion and knew that there was so much more to Jesus and so trusted him. The Gospel tells us Jesus marveled at his faith and praised it as even greater than the faith of the Jews. While many Jews remained closed-minded to Jesus, the centurion recognized who he was and backed his belief with action. Like the centurion, do you approach Jesus with faith and confidence when you present your petitions and supplications, knowing that if he so wills, and by his kindness and mercy, by his mere word, he can change your circumstances? Do you trust him enough to answer your prayer in the way he deems best for you? The love, humility, and faith of the centurion challenges our disposition in approaching Jesus. He was a man who was very likely a new disciple, yet displayed maturity, displayed the qualities we should all have. Let us imitate him. God bless you.